Hi and welcome. Thanks for joining us for the ARC of Fort Bend County's Parent Education and Support Group meeting today on Zoom.
Yes,
My
I
name is, yeah, my name is Carrie Axtell and I'm the Advocacy and Youth Programs Director here at the ARC of Fort Bend County. The ARC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to grassroots advocacy, family support, and we also provide a variety of social and recreational programs for youth, teens, and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So if you would like to learn more about what we do here at the ARC of Fort Bend, please check out our website, arcoffortbend.org. And then we're also pretty active on our social media, so the Instagram or Facebook, so you can check us out there as well. But if you have any questions in the meantime, while we're listening to our presenter, I'd say initially just hold it to the end because our presenter Julie is going to go over a lot of great info. If you're kind of shy and you don't want to say anything, directly, you can put it in the chat and I will read the question to our presenter. But let me go ahead and let you know we are so pleased today to welcome Julie Ames, who is a licensed professional counselor associate, and she's also a fellow special needs parent and author of a very special journey of grief, grace, and gratitude. No, they are not okay, but it's okay. And she is also a host of the Special Needs Family Hour, which is broadcast on AM 860. So, Julie, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise and tips as a parent. And we can't wait to learn from you.
Okay, well, awesome. So today, my understanding is a lot of the audience is going to be adolescents to teenagers, young adults. So the presentation is the journey getting ready for adulthood, and that's you and your child. So the next slide. Now, I did not have time to go through my slide today, for timing. So I have a note up here telling myself to check part way through to make sure that I'm getting halfway through. So my goal is to finish in about 40 minutes. So there's plenty of time to ask questions. So getting ready for your journey. So the ultimate goal, right? The ultimate goal is you want your child to be perfect candidate to fit into any situation. So you want them to be preferred, you want them to be accepted. And well, here's the thing is I know that I'm not going to be there to take care of my child. And I know that whoever takes over from me, they're not going to have the same skill set as I do, or the love or the patience that I do as a parent. So my goal is to increase the odds of my child being successfully integrated into any new setting and not being a burden for the caregiver. So this presentation, part one, I'm gonna introduce you about my journey with our girls, who I am, how did I get here. Part two is helping your child learn independence, setting the stage for positive outcomes, and teaching them pride of ownership, because all of these things help them with their maturity. And then my conclusion is we're going to talk about what makes a contented life and the letting go talk and parting words of encouragement. So they always say you're supposed to start out with a funny story or joke. Hunting for shark teeth. So this is us last June. My husband has this annual conference that we've been going to, forever. And the kids were supposed to hunt for shark teeth. So I thought my children, even though they're 29 and 27, there they are. That's Christine on the left. She is 4'8" and Maria is about 5 foot. They're very young. They let them go to the nursery. They know them and they let them go to the nursery. If you notice, all the other little kids are real little. You see them in the background and they're all hunting for shark teeth. So I thought I was just going to go to the beach. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to watch everything happen. Oh my goodness. I'm sitting on the beach. There's a group beside me doing, what do they call it? They're doing a beach workout. It looked brutal to me. Anyway, someone runs up from the beach and asks if there are any doctors, that there's a child passed out on the beach. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I knew it was my child passed out on the beach. So I run. I see this man running and I don't run. I just had total knee replacement. This is my third week. Oh, I've had my painkiller this morning, so I'm doing okay momentarily. Yes, it's been exciting, but I don't run, but I was running, right? Like we all would. We would run to the, because this man, I guess he was the guy that was the doctor. So he's running, I'm running behind him. I've got the medicine. Sure enough, it's my kid laying in the sand. And I look at her, I said, "What are you doing? How are you doing? What happened?" She says, "I don't know." And she doesn't remember any of it until we get to the inside, the nursery. You know, they had the Baywatch group come up, the whole the vehicle. Anyway, so I'm sure you have all experienced that, right? With our kids, there's always something that's going to go wrong. Now, that's true about all children, but with special needs children, it seems to be more true. So anyway, so who am I and how did I get here? So here I am. That's me on the left. I'm on the top of the tallest building in Florida. It's the tallest structural steel building. All my jobs were in construction. My family's construction. That's me on the right working on a blueprint detailing. So I went to college, became an industrial engineer, graduated from Georgia Tech, and I was planning to get an MBA or a law degree. I worked for the Navy as a, they were hired me as an industrial engineer for their 2-year intern training program where I learned to estimate weapon systems and ships. I became the lead analyst for the aircraft carrier program. So anyway, so I have my career. I don't know if I'm going to have children or not. I've never been around children. I thought, well, if I do, I'll have them between 32 and 35. Actually, I had them between 34 and 38. I always thought I would just have two, but I really liked them. I had three. I would have had more if I could have, but that was not to be. So I really like kids. So when I quit work to stay at home, which I never thought would happen, but so here's the rest of the story, right? So I had my blueprint, I had my plan, right? And I was one of those people, right? Goals, everything's going to go according to the way I set it up. So there are my munchkins. That's Maria. And Maria's about 5, Christina's 3, and that's little Anna. She's about 9 months there. So, all right. So what happened? The rest of the story. Well, the rest of the story is when they're about 7, 5, and Anna's 3, I realized that they're special needs. They have a genetic anomaly, they're on the autism spectrum, and they have intellectual disabilities. So, emotionally, depression, imagine that, right? My life went off script. I needed God's help. Now, here's what's fascinating is when I say I needed God's help, with my typical child, Anna, the youngest daughter, right, I know what childhood looks like. I know what adulthood looks like. I don't really need God's help with that. I mean, we do, but I don't think with the kids, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if they're going to live, if they're going to grow up. I don't know what's going to happen. Eventually, I calmed down. No, eventually I got new dreams for my girls, right? I realized that they could reach their full potential. They could be who God intended them to be. And I embrace the family that I was blessed to have, right? My husband always says we have the perfect family for us. And it's, well, it is imperfect, but perfect. All right. So my original goal, right? You learn your kids' special needs, especially Christina. She was so sick. All right. At one point, we thought she had Rett syndrome and that she would probably die as a child. And then she had her seizure disorder when she was 9. So my goal was just to live one day longer than them, right? If I could just live one day longer. My current goal is to help our girls transition without living with us while we are still alive. Because the worst thing we could ever do is have them live without us when not help them do that before we leave. So that became my goal. All right. So what happened next? The resume. Well, things went off track. Things did not go as Julie had planned. So I was a stay-at-home mom. I only planned to be a stay-at-home mom for a while. I wasn't planning to be a stay-at-home mom for my whole life. We could argue I was actually a stay-at-home mom. Oh, until just a few years ago, where I actually went into an office and had a job. Because with a radio show, it was just once a week. I could just go in weekly and do it. But so stay-at-home mom and volunteer extraordinaire. I would always read about those people that volunteer and they create a career job or something for volunteering. I was volunteering because I was helping my kids, right? I'm sure all of you, right? PTA mom for every school that they've been in, that type of thing. I've been a homeroom mom for each child. And I was volunteering with the Hillsborough County Parent Liaison Group. So Hillsborough County is the 8th largest district. So I volunteered a lot. Writing the book, I knew I wanted to write a book. Actually, I felt led to write a book. I felt like God wanted me to write a book. There were times I didn't want to write the book. There were times I quit writing the book. But writing the book, when I put 2003 to 2013, that's 2003 is when I found out they had the genetic problems. And it was, in a way, it was journaling and it was healing. So it makes her a very good book because it's very detailed. I'm able to go through the feelings, what actually happened. So I wrote the book. So after the book was written in 2013, my goal was to have a website, have friends over, right? Teachers, nurses, doctors, have friends over to the house and have podcasts, and they would be free for everyone with special needs. And hopefully people might hire me to come speak for them. So that was the goal. Well, an opportunity came up to have a radio show. So I had the radio show and the book, there's only so much you can do, right? So the radio show started Mother's Day 2015 to 2020, Special Needs Family Hour radio show host. I did that for 5 years. And that was during COVID. At the time, I was getting my master's in counseling and I was trying to get the book finished, finishing the editing process. So I have the Special Needs Family Hour newsletter that goes out. I have 19 different subject matters of podcasts that are free for people over 5 years. And I have a newsletter of 10 podcasts. So when you sign up, there's a complimentary newsletter of 10 podcasts of everything that a family needs to know financially that has a special needs dependent. It took me 5 years to put that together. So anyway, so the book got published in 2020. Oh, the radio show thing. It was a God thing, okay? Everything in my life after I had the children was a God thing, okay? Because it's like you can't plan it, right? The radio show, you can't plan it. I mean, you just go where you're led. And the master's in counseling, my dad's wife, she said, Julie, you have the experience, you just don't have the credentials. Well, what was amazing is as I started taking counseling courses after I started the radio show, and I just got my master's one course at a time. I loved it because I was interviewing teachers, educators, counselors, and I absolutely loved it. So that's me. All right. Part two. How are we doing? Oh, wow. Okay. We're 16 minutes through. So I have my check time thing. We're doing great. All right. So part two is helping your child learn independence. So setting the stage for positive outcomes. We're going to talk about teaching pride of ownership and responsibility and teaching your child to advocate for themselves. So I wanted you, I will admit to you, the next slide is very crowded because I want everyone to know everything I think they need to know, okay? So that's why it's crowded. So the idea is maybe you can go back and you can blow it up and look at it. But I really wanted everyone to have this list on the right side. This is positive suggestions of talking to your child. So, things like, I appreciate it so much when you do this, or wow, you worked really hard on that. So that is a list that I received probably about 2016 at a special needs ministry seminar. And I put it on my bathroom mirror. And the way my house was designed before I moved to Texas was I had to walk past that many times a day. So did I read this every day? Even though, no, I didn't read it every day, but it reminded me to be positive. And subconsciously, I knew what it said. So I would have an interaction with the children walk by, and you can't help but think, was that positive or not? Right. So on some level, I was always thinking about it. So having a positive attitude, right? That's thoughts, words, and prayer. So positive self-talk, that was something I had to learn way before the kids ever came. But positive self-talk is very important because what we say, we tend to, what we say to our children, what we say to ourselves, we tend to fulfill those things we say. Like if I'm having a bad day, I say that, right? I'm going to make sure I'm going to have a bad day, that type of thing. So praying for unconditional love. This is really fascinating because there are times we don't like our kids. Not that that's ever happened to you, but there are times that I would find myself not seeing, how do I put it, because of my child's behavior, right? Not able to see them for the blessing they were. That's putting it lightly. Oh my gosh. But you know what's amazing is when I pray for unconditional love, it would come. And it would come sooner than expected. And what's interesting is with a prayer, right? It's a thought. It's yeah, I don't know, a request of the heart, and it comes. So, and then on compliments, and this, I always teach this when I'm doing social skills with young people. Be so specific when we pay a compliment. So my favorite example is a kid sets the table. Oh, wow, you did a great job setting the table. Why not say, wow, I really like the way you folded the napkins, or I like the way you arranged that. Okay, then it's more specific, it's more thought out, it's not general, right? And it's really paying attention and enforcing the behavior you want. So teach a child to have a positive attitude by example and correction. So like we were talking about earlier, like being proactive. And I love this. And this is one of the things I said to my kids, you're kind and generous when they do something thoughtful. Because what happens when I say, oh, you're so kind and generous, that becomes their self-image, that becomes a character trait. And we can do that just by saying things to them and noticing what they're doing right. So being in charge and following through when dealing with children. Okay, so mean what you say and sorry. All right, there was a time, all of this is in my book. Okay, there was a time that I can remember the kids weren't listening to me. Not even the dog was listening to me. And why? Because I was flapping my gums, okay? I wasn't following through. I remember looking at the dog, "Why don't you get off the bed?" Well, the dog wasn't listening. It made me realize at that moment in time that I wasn't following through. I wasn't demanding action. So, mean what you say. Oh, are you training your child or is your child training you? So let's say your child doesn't do anything until you yell the third time. Well, it sounds like your child has trained you well, right? And I mean, my dog has me trained, okay, but that's different. We're not going to discuss we're not going to discuss the dog. But with the kids, oh my goodness. All right. And acknowledge your child when he or she follows through. So like the other day, I asked Maria, and I cannot get around. You probably see my walker here. And I'm very so I asked Maria to close the curtains for me. And I remember thinking, did she do that or not? She did do that. So I made sure to tell her thank you. But if she hadn't, I was going to remind her to do it and asked her, why didn't you do it the first? You see what I'm saying? So follow through can be very simple things, but it's teaching them that we will be checking up on them. And the consequence thing, I probably should have put bullet for consequences because consequences are hard, right? With special needs. Oh my gosh, the wrong consequence. I don't know. We could have a seizure. We could have a mental break. I don't, it can be, it's, there have to be consequences, and we have to figure out what the appropriate consequence is for our child. And that's trial and error, and it isn't fun, right? So for one daughter, it could be, well, I'm sorry, you can't go to the library today, but we'll go tomorrow. You've lost the right to go to the library, right? But if you said, you've lost the right to go to the library till next week, Oh my gosh, we're talking complete emotional breakdown. So it's trial and error. But in all of this, there does have to be consequences. Of course, as they get older, we can be more creative with those consequences. So you're not going out with your friends or whatever. So I love this quote here. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. So, what are we doing with positive thought? We're sowing a thought and we're reaping an action. And that creates a chain reaction. So, awesome quote there. All right, pride, ownership, and responsibility. Well, here's the thing is pride and ownership, that doesn't come without chores, right? And personal responsibility. So up here on the right, I put Christina's chore list here. So like if you look at it, taking her medicine. So each kid has their medicine containers for each day of the week. And at the beginning of the week, they set it up. Now, I am fortunate. I don't need to go back and check on that. They're very good at that. They do it automatically. And now remind you, they're 29 and 27. And I'm going to tell you something. When the kids were little, I would go to church and there was a mom. She was Asian. She had three sons. They were dressed alike and they were always so well behaved. And it was obvious they were special needs. They would all wear the same striped shirt and the same shorts. I told my husband, I really want to go talk to her. I don't know how she gets through mass. I don't know how the kids sit there because we always had to leave church, right? I mean, the ushers, they were so nice. It's like they would just open the door for us. I mean, they knew we were coming. It was just when we were coming out, right? Well, I found out later those boys were in their 40s. So some of the things I'm telling you, right, our kids are always learning. It takes time for them to learn. So we are able to get through church now after many years. So this is a chore list here. All right. So when the kids were little, we had a reward system. So when they were little, we had a treasure basket. And it was just full of dollar store items or things that you get when you go to some, fairs, like a local fair, and everyone gives you papers and pencils. So that's what was in the treasure basket. And we used to go on Sunday because that was family day and we really wanted to get through church. So, but now that they're older, we have allowance, $5 a week that they're paid on Sunday. Do they understand money completely? No, but they know that money allows them to buy things. So taking care of themselves. So the girls have their schedules, purses. I don't know about you guys, but I was always carrying all their stuff, right? You go to the amusement park and I have the backpack, I have everyone's things. Finally, they each have their purses. They carry their own medicines, tissues, Vaseline for their lips, because they both get chapped lips. They have lanyards. So they have a lanyard that's in their purse, but they have everything they need. Their library card, their insurance card. They don't have any money. There's nothing to steal, but they have everything that they need in there. Like in the summer when we're going to the pool, they have a pool bag or packing for vacation. I remember my husband said, well, they need to pack when we're going on trip, they need to pack. And he had them a suitcase. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I mean, what do you mean they're packing themselves? And that was always my attitude. I'm very fortunate I had him, right? Because I rather clean the house. I want everything done my way. Um, some people, I understand, some people cook for therapy, right? As their way of processing things. They find it relaxing. When I clean and organize everything, I find that relaxing. I brought order and control to my life, and I'd rather do it. So that was always very hard for me to let them do things in their imperfect way, right? But that's one of the things that we have to learn to do to allow them to get better. So they fix their hair. If you'll notice on the chart, I don't know if it's on this chart, but I actually there are 3 days a week that I fix their hair, where it's important they look nice. So I fixed their hair. So anyway, so there's compromise on some things. All right, so the next slide here is, wait, wow, I can't see the title there. Hold on, let me get my paper here. What is it? What is the title on this slide here? Hold on.
Says teaching child to advocate for themselves.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yes, thank you for that. So
Yes.
don't pummel your child with many questions. Okay, I do this to everyone, usually not with strangers, but to anyone in my family. I'll go through 3 or 4 questions. I think that means I'm impatient, but I'll start pummeling them. And I went to a presentation by a friend and special needs mom, and she was talking about how our kids don't process things very quickly and how we need to ask a question and wait. I don't know why I didn't realize that sooner, but that's one of those things. I ask a question and I wait. Used to, I would just, is it this, this, or this? And well, which one is it? That is not helpful. All right, so it's important for your child to voice their opinions. Okay, the example I have here is we had been going to a Chinese restaurant. My dad would bring my grandmother, so the kid's great grandmother and their grandfather would come on Sunday, and we would go to a Chinese restaurant. Maria and Christina do not eat Chinese food, so they would pack their food or have French fries. Anyway, Maria yells one day. She says, "I hate that restaurant." Maria never says hate. She never yells. She doesn't voice her opinions. So, of course, it was that new school she was going to. But we were thrilled because it was a new stage in her development, right? She was learning to voice her opinion. And I think the compromise was getting her French fries at the restaurant versus packing food. I think that was a compromise, but we did reach a compromise there. So making your child knows that you will help them. This was really frustrating. There was a time period where I would take Maria to school and she didn't want to get out of the car. And, so I would grab her book bag with her toy in it and put it on the sidewalk, jump back in. She would run out to get the book bag and I would leave. Yes, it was always on all the security cameras, and the nurse, I remember one day that was one day, that wasn't all the time, but the nurse was walking in that day with her. So I called the nurse and the nurse said she's fine. But you know what was really going on? It was just a negative atmosphere. What had happened is this school had accepted special needs kids and they were no longer welcome. The school had changed their mission. Like my husband said, they had pulled the welcome mat back in. You're welcome, but now you're not. And she really wasn't getting the support she needs. So about 5 years later, we go to Walmart. We run into Mrs. Green. That's not her real name. And we have a nice conversation. Mrs. Green had been her reading/language teacher. As we're walking away, I asked Maria, "Do you like Mrs. Green?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, I don't either." But I said, "Maria, why did you not like her?" So it took a while. Basically, she favored the other kids and basically she favored the higher functioning kids is what was going on. And so it was a great lesson for Maria, and it's still a lesson that I bring up, is Maria, if I had known, I could have done something about it. And it's really neat when I have counseling and I'm working with special needs kids, I will give them that example. If you don't tell your parents or you don't tell the adult that there's a problem, no one can help you solve it. So that was really, really important. So we had the discussion that we're nice when we see people, we're pleasant, and we move on. All right, this is the conclusion. So in the conclusion, I have this bar on my screen. So I don't know how to get rid of it, but here, in the conclusion. So, this was an amazing thing. So I went to a orientation for Noah's Ark of Central Florida. The executive director, Jack Hosick, was doing the orientation. The Ark of Central Florida is a wonderful place for those with developmental disabilities where they can live. And Jack had developed it. It was $15 million development for housing and residential living. So it's a beautiful place. My kids could not live there because they needed too many supports. For them to live there, I would have had to hire a nurse or someone to be there all the time because they can't manage themselves or the medication. They might be able to fill their medication uh, little boxes on Sunday, but they're not able to handle all the things that go with life. So Jack that day talked about many things. He talked about how it was important for the kids, for young adults, right? What do we need to be have a contented life? Because that's really our goal for our children, is to have a contented life. We need a decent place to live, fun, friends, and family, a purpose in life. And the purpose in life is something meaningful to do every day, and spiritual beliefs. My children, I don't know how much they understand the spiritual thing, In some ways, the whole, as far as Christianity, it's very simple, but at the same time, it's very complex. But when I think of spiritual beliefs, it's really whatever brings happiness to your child, right? That might be music, it might be going for walks. So that's a component. Oh, and Jack that day, so my kids are at this point in time, they're 17 and 15. So that was 10 years ago. So that day, Jack talked about, he called it the letting go talk. And that was that you had to, how important it was for parents to help their child now prepare for independent living. So the next slide here. After his talk, he tells a story, and I found myself considering what I was doing. Was I helping our girls too much? What could we teach them to do for themselves? And how could we foster independence? So here's the story, and I have it in the bottom of the page here, but here's the story Jack told. This young boy went to a camp for those with developmental disabilities. And at the camp, and we have a lot of them. We really do have a lot of nice things in Florida for those with special needs. So he's at the camp. He doesn't show up for breakfast. He doesn't show up for breakfast because he didn't get dressed. He didn't get dressed. He knows how to dress himself, but he's never had to pick out his own outfit. So he cannot move forward from that. And that's when I realized that I had to consider all aspects of my children's life. In other words, did we have something like that lurking that I was doing that I shouldn't be doing? And that really changed the way I was approaching them. So this is kind of parting words of encouragement, maybe a pep talk. The good news is our kids mature. And no one ever told me that even if they're mentally disabled, like my kids are mentally kindergarten to second grade, that they would mature. What that means is they become more independent, they become more adult-like. And the good news is our children are always learning. And what's important about that is as they're learning, there's also that part of them that knows that they're becoming an adult. And sometimes I think there's a dissonance if a parent's doing too much, right? Because they know they're supposed to be an adult, but they're not becoming the adult. Does that make sense? So dissonance is when you have a conflict within yourself. So, all right. And then parents need to know that they shouldn't obsess, right? You're doing a good job. So when I say, when I think of this situation, assess the situation, don't beat yourself up, do what you can do. For me, with Christina and her seizures, right? Technically, she could die anytime, right? But I don't go there, right? I don't go there. And when we have a seizure, let's say she has her seizure, afterwards, I will assess the situation. I'm not finding fault with myself. There's no right or wrong because each seizure is always different. It's always a different situation. So this morning she saw lights. We had a seizure. I had her sit down, then she had a seizure and she had a tablet. So she's sleeping the day away right now. But so in each situation, especially when they're more dramatic or like the grand malls or whatever, I look at the situation, I look at what I could have done, what maybe should I have given her medicine earlier, what should I have done, but I'm not beating myself up about it. And I realize you can only do so much. So, all right, the Bad Mommy Award. I always kid about the Bad Mommy Awards. I mean, I have some really classic ones. This is one of my favorite. This is my lighthearted approach of dealing with my mistakes. So when I was with Hillsborough County, I received the Positive Parent Award. Well, I'm at home and my kids knocked it off the shelf and chipped it. All right, so when I worked for the Navy, I had all these awards, but oh my goodness, this is the only award I've had for my parenting, right? For my 20 years plus of parenting. Anyway, I got upset and yelled. And as I pick it up and I put it back on the shelf, there it says Positive Parent Award. Anyway, so Bad Mommy Award, we laugh, right? It's always the mother's fault. My husband always kids that it's always the mother's fault. So and I write about this in my book, I'm leaving mass, I'm crying, because it's always embarrassing. The kids are off the charts, the stimming behavior, and we're in the back row. I'm leaving mass, and he looks at me, and I'm crying because today it was just over the top. He looks at me and he says, "You know why this happened?" I said, "No." He says, "You didn't go to confession." Well, I started laughing. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He doesn't go to confession, right? I'm laughing hysterically. And we actually made it to coffee and donuts. I was able to get my act together and to go to coffee and donuts, which my kids love. So yeah, and the thing about is it's always a mother's thought. Schizophrenia, I have this little fun fact at the bottom. Schizophrenia in the 40s, 50s, 60s, it was blamed on mothers being rejecting and overprotective of their child. And we know what a fallacy that is. That's so incorrect, it's not even funny. And I think of those poor moms who dealt with that, right? Okay, the last part are resources. And some of these slides, like I said, they're very crowded, but I wanted everyone to have the resources here. So Transition to Adulthood, that is an actual book about guiding your child into adulthood. And I think it's a nice book. My husband went through it. I went through, he said, "Julie, you need to read this one chapter here." But it's a good book, even if your child isn't necessarily autistic. Raising Children with Special Needs. That's my book. My book, I think, is really good for those people going through the process, like children starting out. And people can just read sections. Like maybe if you're having medical challenges, read the medical section or whatever. All right, social skills, how to start a conversation and make friends. That is a great book. It has pictures. It's very simplistic. It's one that I use with teenagers. It's a very old book, but I'll use it with teenagers. Go through it with just regular, typical teenagers. So it might even be appropriate for your special needs child. And then the Asper Kids Secret Book of Social Rules. That is such an awesome book. But I find that some of the Asperger kids I worked with, that sometimes they won't read it. So after they've talked about everything they want to talk about in session, I will go through certain sections of it. So, okay, books. Oh, here we are. General books for parents that explain what our current culture is. You're Teaching My Child What and Lost in Translation. Those are rough books, but very educational and very scary. What else? Books on sex and dating. And of course, with all these books, always read them first before you ever give one to your child or to someone else. Creating a positive thought process. That's what you say when you talk to yourself. And I had a young client, ninth grade, she was addicted to her phone. And this is a fun book. My husband listened to it. You can listen to it on audio. I listen to it. It's just a fun book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. We don't break up with our phone, but we need to understand our relationship with it and how how it's using our dopamine process to control us, right? Each gene, right? We're always looking at it, looking for that nice comment that's going to give us a dopamine rush. Okay, and the last part is just the special needs family hour where you can sign up. You can sign up for the newsletter, and we have the podcast library from everything from medical. So that's the talk. So that took about 43 minutes. So if there are any questions, that's fine. Or
Yeah,
anything you guys want to talk about.
those are great resources. So now I just need to find the time to do the reading, right?
Yeah, but a lot of these things you can just listen to on tape.
I do like the audiobooks with Audible, and you can just
Yes, and you
listen
can
to it on the commute.
yes, and library has the app Hoopla. You can download the app. And
Ah, okay.
yes, and so you're able to get some of these books. You don't have to pay for them and all that. You're able to get them from the library on loan, and they loan them for you for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's plenty of time to
Yes,
listen to it.
and they keep track of them because sometimes you'll wonder, oh, did I read that book? And you can look at it on Hoopla and know, oh yes, I did get through that book. So,
You
was
read
there
that.
anything anyone wanted to ask?
Well, so I'm not, let me pull up the chat just to see if anybody has put anything in the chat. Do not see anything in the chat, but I will say, so I like what you said about don't bombard with questions. So I am guilty. So I get the bad mommy award for that.
Yeah,
Because I find myself, because there's so many things you want to ask, right? Well,
right.
this and this and this and so just being more cognizant of um then you're just piling on too much.
Yes.
Yeah, so I like that, and allowing the time to process. And the other part resonated with me too is I feel like as moms we have a lot of we do carry a lot of that guilt and a lot of that, we're supposed to be perfect and we're supposed to have everything figured out. But we're human beings too, and we had dreams too, right? Here you
Right.
are literally standing on the top of some of the tallest buildings. You have just a stellar plan and goal in life there, and then it's like life happens to you instead of you planning your life, right?
Exactly.
And how
Yes.
to make sense of that,
Yes.
especially when life is like walking through a fog anyways. None of us has a crystal ball to know what's going to happen a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and how all those things that we have no idea that's going to come out, and how it will impact us. So I think that's the tough part too, as
Right.
just
And
human
that's
beings.
yeah, we go because it goes off script and it never goes back on script. It's like
Mhm.
once you have, especially with special needs, right? Or a traumatic accident or anything like that, it never quite goes back on script. But that's why I say a lot of things are God things because they're not anything I would have planned or considered. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we do have to give ourselves a lot of grace. Just
Yes. Well, sometimes I kid that moms were supposed to be guilty. And I don't mean that we're really supposed to be guilty, but part of being a caregiver is questioning,
yeah,
right? It's questioning, but not beating ourselves up.
yeah, yeah. Well, a lot to think about, Julie. And I love just all the different tools, the resources, the permission to be a human being, and it's okay not to be perfect. And we all experience that. So
Yes. So will this, are there certain, do you need me to send you flyers or can you just post this with your video or?
I will post I'll just turn it into a PDF and I will share this with everybody who registered. So
Okay,
yeah,
thank
let me
you.
go ahead and so I see there's a way you can, to contact you. Maybe if the last thing before we sign off, let's go back to the
I think the front page, I put my,
front page. Yep. We will end it with that so that so there's your email address, but then they can also reach you at specialneedsfamilyhour dot
um,
dot com. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Julie. I will send this out. So those of you who may have only, caught a portion of the presentation, no worries. I will be sending a copy of the full video presentation with a copy of Julie's the PowerPoint, the presentation, the paper that came with it. And I will email that to everybody who registered. So you will get to view this later. But thank you. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Continued good journeys. We're going to, we will get through this together as parents.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.